What's going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa for one of our candidate interviews. Today, we have a very special guest, Josh Collins, who is running for Congress in Washington State, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I don't think he's running the other Washington. Can you let the crowd know a little bit about yourself? What party are you running in? What's the main components of your platform, and what encouraged you to run?
Okay, so I guess first thing I'll start out with, I consider myself an independent. I don't subscribe to the Democratic Party entirely or the Green Party. But in my district, I think the best chance we have of winning is by running as a Democrat. People have run as independent. They've had very well-run campaigns and have not had a lot of success because we have a very blue district with not a lot of voter turnout, not a lot of attention, and our media is basically non-existent for as far as covering progressive candidates. Mm-hmm. So I'm running as a Democrat, and in Washington's 10th district, we have a best of two, similar to California. Sarah Smith made it past the primary system last time, and it was Democrat versus Democrat.
Oh, so you have a jungle primary system.
Exactly, yeah.
Got you, okay.
Right. And, right now I'm running against a guy who is a Democrat, and pretty much that means nothing. His policies are very similar to the Republican Party. He will only differentiates himself between them on, things like abortion, marijuana legalization, gay marriage. But when it comes to the economics, he's all in with the Republican Party.
So what's your opponent's name?
His name is Dennis Heck, and he's been in politics in Washington State for over 40 years.
Oh, he gotta go. He gotta go.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna ask, what made you decide, okay, you know what, I'm tired of this. I need to put myself out there. I need to go run because it feels like nobody else is going to get the job done.
Well, I think I have a very unique perspective. As I'm a semi-truck driver. I've been a truck driver for 5 years. I grew up poor. And, I have a lot in common with people who typically wouldn't vote for a Democrat, but also necessarily don't agree with the Republican Party. We have a very progressive district and a very independent district. Only thing is they don't know who's running. They don't know the problems with the candidate that's in office. And I think having someone who is different, not, just some, liberal arts graduate.
Blue collar worker, having a blue collar worker, pedal to the metal kind of guy, get the job done.
Exactly. And truck driving is one of the most common jobs in my district. There are, a lot of lawyers in Congress. It's 40% of Congress are actual lawyers, right? And there's not a single person from a truck driver or the trucking industry or the freight industry.
Even though it's one of the most prosperous industries in the country.
Yeah, and one of the most common jobs. Truck driving specifically is the most common job in 23 different states. And there are about almost 4 million of us. And then there are about 10 million jobs attached to the industry. And none of us have any representation in Congress. We're facing automation. We're facing automation. If you work in an Amazon warehouse or you drive a truck, those are both facing automation. And there's no one in Congress talking about it. So that's part of why I'm here to do this.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So you if you win, you obviously be representing one of the most progressive states and apparently one of the most progressive districts in the country, which means essentially that you're going to have an uphill battle. How do you feel like you have the unique skill set and ability to basically thrive in a system it's like, say you win, how are you going to thrive in a system and get policies passed that, we know the Democrats and Republicans are going to try to fight against?
So I don't, I understand what I'm doing, right? I'm not here to just run for Congress. I'm attacking an empire. It's not as simple as going in and, shaking hands and getting along to go along. When I do this, Republicans, Democrats, all these corporate funded politicians, they all see me as a threat. because I'm not coming in as someone who, was prepped for this for decades, who came from rich parents, who went to an Ivy League school, and worked my way up by running for this seat and running for that seat, and kind of waiting my turn in line to just walk into a congressional seat. I'm coming from the working class. I'm doing this because we really need it. I'm not doing it because I want representation in Congress. Like, I'm doing it because we need representation in Congress. All the issues that my district is facing, we're not having anyone talk about it except for a few members, which only recently got into Congress. Now they're going to oppose my whole agenda because my whole agenda opposes them. Their existence in Congress, someone who's corporate funded, someone who is taking checks from Boeing and Raytheon and JP Morgan and all these corporations, ExxonMobil, their comfort in Congress is threatened by what I'm doing. Now, my plan is just be open, transparent, and make everything completely public. If someone,
I think that is probably, the best thing you can do. And, and of course, it sounds easier said than done. But right now, I feel like right now we only really have one congressperson who is open 100%. And I feel like that's Tulsi. As much love as I have for AOC, Elon, and Tlaib, I think that there is some hesitancy, right? Because they were instantly thrusted into the spotlight. And I do think that there is a desire to not want to lose it, right? But
I think the most important thing for someone who is grassroots and really people funded and actually put into Congress by the people rather than corporations is you have to recognize your power. You're not getting put in there by Boeing. So it's Ocasio-Cortez. I love her, but I don't think she realizes she is so much more powerful than Nancy Pelosi. 100%. She doesn't have to worry about the agenda of Nancy Pelosi. And if someone like Nancy Pelosi wants to try and fight my agenda with these dirty-handed, behind the scenes politics, you know what I'll do? Like, if you're not going to support the Green New Deal, I'll go in your districts and I'll hold town halls in your district.
Okay, so first of all, cha-ching, I just heard dollar signs. Everybody go to Josh Collins' site right now. Is it Josh Collins for Congress?
Yeah,
what is it?
Joshua2020.com.
Go donate I don't care how much, donate something, because that is what I've been wanting to hear from people I've been doing candidate interviews for a while, right? And everybody says, well, we're going to hold them accountable, we're going to speak out. But people don't understand the mandate usually, right? And I don't think that AOC actually understands her mandate. With like, for example, with Venezuela, the whole world would know what's going on in Venezuela if AOC sent out one tweet.
Yeah.
Right. We know that. And I'm glad that Elon used that, to her advantage, but AOC's in a different stratosphere than everybody, except for So for you to say that lets me know that you understand how the game is played, right? Because it is best played in the Congress now. It's played out in public.
Right. And the thing is this game that like people are kind of subscribing to, where you keep quiet on certain issues. That's their game. It's that. So you don't want to play their game. So you just got to fucking throw a brick into it and actually come out swinging. Like if someone wants to come and try and do this like underhanded politics, we'll blacklist you from this organization. We're gonna try and keep you off of this committee. Well, guess what? I'm gonna go in your district. I'm gonna talk to your voters, and I'm gonna tell them what you're doing in Congress to them. So that's my plan.
That is one of the, and it's funny that you said that, because I feel like I had this strategy, and that's like I was planning on running for Congress, but I'm doing some stuff on the back end right now that I have to put off for at least one more thing. I mean, I'm doing some political stuff, but it's kind of important, so I have to put it off. So my thing was, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, if you're the president, for example, right? And this is one thing that Trump got right strategically after he got elected. He went from district to district, albeit districts that love him, but these are the states that he needs to win, right? So that's what I have to do. You go from district to district, especially districts that voted for you or somebody who said that they would run the country like you would want them to. And he starts saying, this is what we got done. This is what I was not allowed to do because they blocked me from doing it. Now, albeit BS, it's still strategically, because if you're not in the small districts, the districts around the country, as much as you are taking care of foreign policy, like with Barack Obama was overseas more than he was in these small districts that voted for him. And it showed, right? When it was time to reelect Congress and the Senate, they felt like they weren't being represented. And so I'm glad that you said that. I feel like that's a strategy not discussed and talked about enough. Hold them accountable.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing I've learned, so I used to be an activist specifically in Nevada, and we put a lot of work into trying to stop the Republicans there from cutting the education budget and funneling all that money into private prisons. And all of these politicians would, they'd give nice words and they pretend that they're on our side. And when it came down to their vote, they voted against it, and they, voted with their donors, who were the private prisons. And so I learned a fundamentally important lesson there. It's that some politicians can't be pushed, and you just have to get them out. And my representative is one of those politicians. He's been pushed on Medicare for all, and he said specifically he will never support Medicare for all. And this is from a Democrat.
And did he give a reason why? Like a legitimate did he try to play through it?
No. So they were holding hearings on it, and people pushed him on it, and he can't really give a good reason. He wants to defend the ACA, which, as we know, is already a failing strategy, because under the ACA, we were preserving these private insurance companies, which are just leeches. They're a burden on our whole economy. And, that strategy, we've seen the Republicans are going to use it to just whittle away all the good things that did come with the ACA and leave us with nothing but the bad things, like the mandate and these high, prices for insurance.
And it's got to be, I feel like it's political suicide at this point. How are you not going to support a policy that's 70% of the country on both sides of the aisle? Exactly. I guess. Yeah. And
right. And my district has, it's a very independent district, but, it's going to be very hard for a Republican to win it because, people that are independent would, they're against the Republican Party. And that is essentially what has gotten this guy through so far, is he is campaigning against Trump. Well, if it's him versus me, well, guess what? I'm not Trump either. So you got to have some real policies and real ideas. Otherwise, why would people vote for you?
When is the first jungle primary for your district?
It's going to be in August of next year. So it's going to be a while.
Okay. No, that's great for you.
Yeah. Starting early. That's the thing I learned. Ocasio-Cortez, she ran, she's one of the Justice Democrats, and a few others. The number one thing that they told us as people who, volunteer for Justice Democrats was start early. So that's what I'm doing. I've been putting in the work, building a following. Yeah. I've already pledged I'm going to knock on 25,000 doors with my own hand before the primary. So, whatever everyone else knocks on, I'll be doing 10 times as many. And our goal is 250,000 doors before the primary. We're trying to get a list of 1,000 volunteers. We already have 150, and we got a year to go. So, we're going to easily surpass 1,000 people knocking doors. Fundraising, we started a few weeks ago. We're at about $7,000, and our goal is 150 grand. So it's all very realistic. We can really do this. With Ocasio-Cortez and some of these others getting through, people realize it can be done. You don't have to be this, trained politician, this, person who's been in politics for 40 years. You don't have to be an Ivy League graduate. You can just be a regular working class person and run for Congress.
I hate to bring this up as an example, but all I'm saying is we know a bus driver down in the South is standing up for Empire right now, and he seems to be doing a decent job, named Maduro. So I feel like you might, I feel like, in all seriousness, there is something to be said for finally having a real blue collar worker in Congress, because all the policies that they pass, the things that they advocate for and against, seem to almost directly hurt the blue collar worker 100% of the time.
Yeah, right.
Nobody's specifically how it affects you all, like specifically. And I feel like you could do that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, one of my the top people on my campaign is a union member. A lot of the people on my staff are people who are union workers or blue collar workers. I've got retail workers, people who are really threatened by automation, people whose jobs are threatened by outsourcing, people who work in warehouses. My not only am I working class, but like my campaign is going to be working class. It's going to be a diverse working class campaign of the people, and we're going to really, go out there and talk to people about the issues they care about. And if there's any issue that I'm not like aware of, people can just reach out to me on Twitter, talk to me about it, set up a meeting. We'll get some coffee, and I'll make sure I fully understand their issues. And I've gone through this with issues, disability, and things that, I don't personally experience, talk to someone about it, make sure I really understand it and understand what people are going through. And that's something that, politicians like mine, who spends all of his time in Washington, D.C. doing these $5,000 tickets for like wine tasting events. That's his fundraiser. That's it. Who he talks to. He talks to the people who can go to that in D.C., not even in his own district. So he's not even talking to rich people in Washington State. He's talking to the ones in D.C.
My friends drink beer. They don't really drink wine like that. But okay, that's good stuff, man. So one of the biggest issues that, in my opinion, is plaguing the country today, especially, it's an issue that's been talked about a lot because Biden recently announced the criminal justice system. And I don't like calling it a criminal justice system. It's just a criminal system, because at this point,
injustice system.
Exactly. It is. Yeah. The system itself is criminal. And like every other entity, for-profit entity in this country, it is an abysmal failure. And it is merely exploitation.
Right.
How, what do you see wrong with the system? And how do you plan on addressing a lot of the problems we see there?
Well, I think it's important to address that our country was founded on racism and oppression, and the problems that exist today are remnants of problems that existed in our country from its founding. At this point in time, you can see clearly when so many Black people are locked up in prison over marijuana, and you have representatives like mine, who his biggest focus on marijuana is getting the pot shop's bank accounts rather than getting the people out of prison. He supports legalization, but what is he going to do about the people who are in prison right now over marijuana? And that's the same thing we would see with the Joe Biden presidency. Joe Biden doesn't even believe in medical marijuana, so he's even worse than the guy I'm running against. And when we talk about fixing our criminal justice system, we need to go through the whole system and reform the entire system, and it starts from policing. Personally, I don't think traffic stops should even be a thing. I think if a cop is going to give you a ticket for something, they shouldn't be able to have pull you over and then have this weird interaction where, they have a conversation with you and figure out whether or not they're going to give you a ticket. They're going to give people tickets. Just send them a ticket in the mail. I don't know why we have to have this situation where, they're going to,
that's interesting.
Approach a car. That. Yeah. I mean, there are countries where this is done. And, I think it also leaves the system vulnerable to discrimination, where cops can decide, well, I'm going to give this guy a ticket or not a ticket. I've been pulled over a dozen times, and I feel like if my skin were darker, maybe I would have a lot more tickets. And that's a reality in America, where cops, even if they're doing it unconsciously, they're more likely to be, more punitive. And that goes from the policing all the way to the judiciary, and then when people are actually in prison. So
yeah, we definitely fetishize punishment in this country.
Yes.
And obviously, because of the history of this country and who was primarily punished for being disobedient specifically, there you have this sense of that people feel like they want to teach a lesson.
Right.
People of color a lot of the time.
That is the kind of the sense I get. There are a lot of cops who they function on ego. And I think those people need to either not be in policing, or we need to completely get it out of them. If you're going and policing the community and you're worried about your feelings rather than the other person's safety, I think that's a giant issue, and we shouldn't allow that in policing at all. A lot of police officers, they are domestic abusers, and I think all of them should be disqualified completely from working in the police.
A lot of police officers. So, I mean, we have a system, and I'm a veteran, so I've seen it. I've literally seen my friends who've suffered from PTSD. Next thing I know, on Facebook, I see them posting a picture with their new badge. I'm like, wait a minute, you were literally kicked out the military, medically retired for PTSD, and then we're like, here's a gun, go get him, Tiger.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, if you have being a police officer is a difficult job. I recognize that. You know, and a lot of it is the system that we have. I mean, that's why I believe in just completely ending like traffic stops entirely. Because if I were, you know, if I were a cop, I had to pull someone over, well, there is some chance that you just get killed, right? Because that does happen. So if that would be in the back of my mind, just
But very
completely end
rarely,
that system entirely.
very rarely though.
Very rarely, of course.
And
Yeah.
it's usually in situations where they knew what they were getting into before they pulled that person over.
Right. Yeah. But I think, you know, that's just a small aspect of it. You know, a lot of cops shouldn't be cops. A lot of them shouldn't be even involved in the system at all. I think we need to completely end the system where the first thing a cop goes to is their gun, rather than, you know, talking to someone. And I think we need, you know, serious training on, you know, things like implicit bias. Make sure, you know, because people don't know that they're racist. And when you say that they have, you know, biases, then they take it as like an attack on their character. And we needed to make it clear that, like, no, people have implicit bias.
Everybody.
Even if you don't have bad intentions, you treat people differently, and everyone needs to be aware of that. We need to address it, and we need to really attack it systematically.
100% agree. I think that, you know, what would be the quickest way to stop people from putting their hands on their guns all the time? If a cop, so for in the military, for every single bullet fired, you have to have a report. That's how it's supposed to be done. Like while you're deployed, you have to have a report, or like literally on every single bullet, like why it was necessary.
Wow.
So like if every time a cop even put his hand on a gun, he needs to give an explicit, detailed reason why he felt his life is threatened. Even if, because a lot of times they're going to make it up, but you do that enough times when you have to make up a story every single time, you're not going to do it anymore. You're going to be, well, let me just try to be a little bit more reasonable here. And I guarantee,
I think we're going to see a trend every time they fill out those reports. A lot of them are going to be with people who don't look like me. They look more like you.
Yeah,
so
it would.
Exactly. I've had all these interactions with cops. I've never had a cop touch his gun. And, you know,
that must be nice.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the system I want for everybody, though. That's the thing to make it clear, is like, you don't want cops going for their gun when they're just talking to you. It's so crazy.
So how do you feel about the private prison system? Do you think that they have a place at all? Do you think they should be completely knocked out?
I think our prison system should be completely just deconstructed and turned into something else. So private prisons obviously should be completely illegal. It's ridiculous that we would put a profit system into something where you're literally controlling every aspect of someone's life, right? Because they will cut corners on things like nutritious food, on education, on training. And so they will cut corners on the corrections part, and then all that's left is the punitive aspect of the prison system. So instead of, you know, actually trying to make someone, you know, if someone did commit a crime and they are convicted, and we're deciding that, you know, we need to have some sort of, you know, correction for that, we're just locking them up, and that's our whole plan. And obviously that's going to lead to them, you know, being exposed to a terrible system, and then we're going to have them come out of prison with, you know, all that time not spent on education or working, or if they are working, they're working for nothing or little money.
All right, so,
you know,
so go ahead.
So basically what I'm saying is we need to really focus on corrections, on if someone is, you know, doing time. It should be education. It should be well-paid work, and, you know, a lot of nonviolent offenders should not be in prison in the first place.
Force them to go to community college. You're gonna go get an education. That's what you're gonna do for your time. That's good. Hey, look, I bet it. You know, there's a lot of people who are so scared of school they might act right just so they don't have to go.
Right.
But so before, we got like 5 minutes left, I want to actually I'm gonna ask you a tough question. So there has been I guess they want to call it a controversy. So Bernie says that all prisoners should be able to vote 100% of the time. Tulsi, however, highlighted the structural problem with that in our current system. She didn't say she's against it, but there is a lot of truth. It's funny. I was talking to a fellow literally the other day where he was like, "Oh no, I've been to prison. They will leverage us to get what they want." And so Tulsi brought up a good point, and Bernie brought up a good point. So what do you think about that situation?
I think the problems with having everyone vote are things that we should address if we're going to have everyone vote. So if we're going to give prisoners the right to vote, obviously it should be number one priority to make sure that their vote is not being influenced. And that seems very obvious to me. And I do believe that the right to vote is.
Well, you turn sideways on it. You turn sideways on it a little bit.
Okay,
we're back. We're back.
Okay, I'm just holding my phone with a selfie stick, so
you're good.
Yeah, so I believe the right to vote is an unalienable right. And obviously, if we have prisoners where people are able to influence their vote, that should be corrected very strongly. And the oversight on that should be incredible. That way, we don't have any risk of those votes being influenced.
See, but here's my playing devil's advocate. Here's the problem with that, because I actually agree that they should be able to vote. We have situations right now, currently, where a lot of prisoners are not from their state. So undoubtedly, to solve that problem, they would just use absentee ballots. We know where absentee ballots go, and it isn't to the candidate of our choice. So like that's just one made. So what in my opinion, the biggest problem with prisoners voting has nothing to do with the prisoners. It's the fact that our current voting system is so broken, and that there's been no one outside of, I think, Tulsi and maybe a couple of Tim Canova, so people at the local levels as well, like to address it, that we're skipping 10 steps by saying, oh, prisoners should vote. But those same people have not really been in the fight saying, well, can I make sure that my vote counts first? Before we literally just throw hundreds of thousands of votes to the establishment candidate of their choice? Right.
Yeah, that's the thing is, we need serious election reform. I actually think of all states, my state is one of the best. We have a very transparent process. You are sent a ballot, and I know what you're thinking, like they're just going to toss it in the trash. But when you mail it in and it is counted, you can actually look up your vote online. And that's so you can see who your vote was counted towards, see if it was counted. And that's the system I believe we should have, where you have a several month window where you can turn in your ballot. I think that's the best system, or a few weeks at least.
That is something that what Tulsi was talking about with voter verified paper ballots, and then when you turn in your ballot, you are able to verify it yourself. That is so basically you have a very legitimate chance to win. Like without, I mean, they're going to try to cheat, but like as far as the people's ballots being counted, their name being on it, you have a very legitimate chance to win.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually live streamed too. So when they count the ballots, so that's what we should be doing in the entire country. We should have a direct feed. You can watch people count your ballot or count the ballots, and then anyone can look up their ballot online. And if there's a discrepancy, that should be investigated. They also match your signature to your one on your driver's license.
Let me take some time before we go to say that that is probably, I know we talked about it a lot here, but that's probably your biggest asset. And if I voted for you, the other issue is like, okay, cool. But if you were going against another progressive, right, I would probably say your experience and understanding of how your voting system works and how you're gonna be like, look, I know how our voting system in Washington works, and it works great. Why aren't we using this instead across the country? Right. And you can advocate for that and actually explain how that process works and make it like you can normalize it. And so like kind of like how we do ranked choice voting, right? So a lot of people now know how ranked choice voting works, but nobody in Congress is really talking about it, right? So for the process, it seems like you understand it. And we need more people who understand how it, like, to make it work right, so that we can start having these conversations and making them more mainstream. So
and a lot of these more establishment politicians, they actually don't want a system like we have, because they do rig the primaries, they do rig the elections. I saw in 2016 myself personally. I voted in Nevada before I moved to Washington in the primary. My registration was changed to Republican. My wife's registration was changed to Republican. And I've never voted Republican in my life, neither has she. And what that would have done, what's that?
And a Democrat has to be the one to change it. It can't be, you can't change the registration of another party.
Right. So they're very entrenched in the system, so that they're able to mess with people's registrations. And Nevada should have gone to Bernie Sanders, but because of the number of people who had the same thing that happened to me, being picked as delegates, it was all coincidentally young people. They had their entire precincts, entire neighborhoods whose votes didn't count, and it ended up going to Hillary Clinton. And we saw stuff like that happening all over the country.
Wow. I mean, yeah.
By the way, in my state now, Washington State, our state went 80% for Bernie almost, and still Hillary Clinton won it with super delegates. So, which I'm running against one. So.
Oh, that's another reason to go for you. Oh man, let's get him out of there. Let's get him out of there. Once again, before we go, let everybody know where they can donate to your campaign, and what interviews you've done recently, so people know where to go look.
So I was just on TYT. You can see that in the recent videos. It was a pretty brief interview. Didn't get to talk about too much. I was just on Kim Iverson today, so that'll be out soon as well. You can see me on a few different Facebook ones. I'll have them all on my website very soon. So a lot of smaller, more independent medias. I've done about 15 of them. There will be a Huffington Post article soon, so that'll be my first print interview that I've done. Joshua2020.com is the website. And that has my donation link, my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you don't want to donate on ActBlue, the link for my crowd pack is also on my Twitter.
Man, you got all the bases covered. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Joshua Collins. Joshua 2020 or Joshua Collins 2020?
Joshua2020.com.
Joshua2020.com, people. Go donate $1 to help this man take out a super delegate, because we need to get them out of here. And we also need to have somebody who understands how elections should be working, and somebody representing the blue collar people around this country who never, like I said, it seems like almost like eternity, basically, since our inception of the country, the blue collars workers have never really been represented. And so it is about that happen. So thank you very much for coming on, Josh. I really appreciate it. For everyone else, thank you all for tuning in. And remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.
Thanks.